I think he's dead wrong. It's the Americans who can't be trusted. If you look at the 17 June Memorandum of Understanding, and the key issue here involves Article 5, who controls the Strait of Hormuz. In my opinion, Article 5 makes it clear that it is Iran that will be in control of the Strait of Hormuz for the 60-day negotiating period. And after that, the future of the strait will be decided between Oman on one side and Iran on the other side. The United States is not mentioned at all. And what the Trump administration tried to do after the Memorandum of Understanding was signed was create a channel in the Gulf, or to put it more specifically, to create a channel in the Strait of Hormuz that basically was American controlled and would allow ships to go through under the auspices of the United States and outside the auspices of the Iranians. And unsurprisingly, the Iranians said this was unacceptable and that it was a violation of Article 5 of the Memorandum of Understanding. The Iranians are correct. What that gentleman just said on Fox News is simply not true.
And so what about his comment there that we should be encouraged that President Trump has a resolution to this? So even though Iran is not doing what we want them to, forget about what the MOU actually said, but don't worry because we have escalation dominance. Do we?
Well, you want to remember that President Trump signed the Memorandum of Understanding on June 17th because he had no choice. The Iranians were winning the war, and the Iranians held all the cards when you went up the escalation ladder. And this is why President Trump signed what was effectively a surrender document. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is what's changed since June 17th that now gives us escalation dominance? I mean, if we had escalation dominance before June 17th, we would have taken advantage of that and we would have used it to make sure we got a better agreement. The fact that we didn't take advantage of it meant we didn't have escalation dominance before June 17th. So the argument here is that something has changed. Well, I'd like to know what is that something that has changed. According to my calculations, we've been engaged in this tit-for-tat strategy since July 7th. Again, the Memorandum of Understanding was signed June 17th. We then welched on the deal, and you got this tit-for-tat strategy starting on July 7th, which is now taking place. And it does not look like we have gained any coercive leverage over Iran as a result of that tit-for-tat strategy. They are matching us at every turn and causing us huge trouble in the Gulf. We don't have escalation dominance. Now, is the administration saying that we can escalate further? We can go beyond tit for tat, maybe go back to the 40-day war, which was a real strategic bombing campaign that took place between February 28th and April 8th. We can go back to that and we'll win that conflict? I don't think so. There's no evidence we can do that. And there's no evidence that continuing tit for tat, even at a higher level, is going to produce the desired outcome for the United States. The fact is, we have no choice but to reach some sort of memorandum of understanding with the Iranians and put an end to this.
And look, there is some real immediate present term costs to going down this path. You mentioned that on June 17th, even Trump admitted that there were some economic potentials. Well, now that we're seeing, what you're seeing on the screen right here is the live actually spot price for a barrel of oil. It's $140. The paper price right now, the futures market is, I think it's 92 for WTI and right around 100, I think, for Brent. But when you're actually buying a barrel of oil, that's what you're paying right now. And the expectation is that as the time goes forward, these two sides are going to merge. So you're going to get closer to this number here is actually going to be what we have to pay. I mean, we are paying it right now. So the question is, financially, what has changed from June 17th to today when you see what we're actually paying?
What has happened is the situation has gotten much worse economically. And the key factor here is the fact that the Houthis have shut down the Red Sea. They now make it impossible for Saudi Arabia to ship its oil through Bab el-Mandab Strait. And this is going to have significant negative effects on the price of oil and therefore on the international economy. This is, in my opinion, a disastrous situation. The Strait of Hormuz is shut down, and now the Bab el-Mandab Strait is shut down. So economically, we're worse off today than we were right after June 17th. Second point I'd make to you, Danny, is, as you know, one of the reasons that we wanted to reach an agreement with the Iranians is that we were running out of precious munitions. This is one of the reasons that we ended our war against the Houthis in the spring of 2025. It's one of the reasons that we were so anxious to end the 12-day war against Iran last June. This is June 2025. It's one of the reasons that we wanted to stop the 40-day war, as I said. And as you engage in a tit-for-tat strategy, you're using up more precious ammunitions. So for those people who talk about escalating now, you want to remember that what we're going to do is burn up even more precious munitions. So from that point of view, as well as from the economic point of view, it makes no sense for us to up the ante or to continue the status quo with regard to this tit-for-tat strategy. What we should do, if we were smart, is cut a deal.
Yeah, we already had a deal and we uncut it, to use that vernacular here. But this seems to complicate situations. So you mentioned that the Houthis, Ansar Allah, has closed the southern exit to the Red Sea at the Bab el-Mandab, and that has caused the oil price to spike even higher than it was just because of the Strait of Hormuz. In response, yesterday, President Trump said, please let this truth serve to represent that if they do this again, the U.S. will hold Iran responsible and that the Houthis are a surrogate and a proxy and a major military punch will be inflicted. But at least as of right now, we have done nothing for the Houthi attack onto Saudi vessels. Gary, I think, has some video where you can see a pretty spectacular nighttime scene, one of those ships on fire. And at least so far, we've done nothing. Do you expect that to continue?
Danny, we went to war against the Houthis in March of 2025. This is a year ago this past March, right? President Trump comes into the office January 2025. In March, 2 months later, he goes to war against the Houthis. He quits in May because he can't defeat the Houthis. And furthermore, as I said before, we were expending precious munitions. What's changed now? Does he really want to go to war against the Houthis as well as Iran? I don't think so. He's not going to defeat the Houthis. He's not going to defeat Iran. And he's going to end up expending even more munitions than he's now expending in his fight against Iran. So we have no cards to play with regard to the Houthis.
And yet, according to Greenway there just a second ago, and when you take a look at even Al Jazeera is reporting that Jordan, Bahrain, and Kuwait have reportedly received retaliatory strikes from Iran after our 12th consecutive. So earlier today, the Iranian side clearly is not backing down anything. But then that second bullet you see at the bottom, President Trump is considering a massive attack on Iran, bigger than ever before, and that he's close to making a decision. But, you know, let's take a look at, here's what's been happening just recently with all of these American bases getting hit already. And like, look, Greenway said something that lots of other people are saying, which is just crazy to me. He said they don't hardly have any capacity left. And yet this confirms they do have a lot of capacity. That's just over a single 7-day period. And there's more after that. And then you see just overnight, earlier this very day, those targets are hit and there's nothing we can do to stop them. What does that tell you about our defensive capability?
Well, the American intelligence community has made it clear that as a result of the 40-day war, Iran was left with a substantial number of missiles and drones, and they're continuing to replenish their capability when it comes to missiles and drones. So there's no evidence that I know of that Iran is running out of missiles and drones. I mean, people like Greenway can make these assertions, but you have to back these assertions up with facts. You have to be able to show us the evidence that Iran is running out of missiles and drones. In fact, what we see with our own eyes is exactly the opposite of what he says. One more point on this, Danny. He talks about how President Trump is going to up the ante, we're going to escalate, and that's going to, provide the magic formula. But it's easy to say things like that. Please tell us what your theory of victory is. Tell us exactly what we're going to do when we escalate. What targets are we going to hit? And what effect is hitting those targets going to have on the Iranians? Nobody ever tells us that story because, in fact, there's no story to be told. What targets can we hit that will make a difference? The answer is none. If there were those targets, we would have hit them a long time ago. It's not like we've just been waiting for the right moment to hit the targets and bring the Iranians to their knees. This is a ludicrous argument. There is no set of targets that we can hit that will coerce the Iranians into surrendering. It's not going to happen. They are facing an existential threat. They're going to fight to the death. And they have lots of capability to do that. We are in a losing war. And again, this is why President Trump signed the Memorandum of Understanding on June 17th. And as I said before, nothing has changed since then. There's no magic formula available today that was not available on
Trump in angry mood. Very good news. Tension in Middle East. Wow. This is very good news.